Thanks. Hi everybody. My name is Brian Clayton. I'm the UCC Research Cloud Manager. So I'm going to talk to you today about research data management at UCC. So it's quite UCC focused. I'm going to talk through the history of the services that we offer here for data storage and for data computation. I'm going to talk to you about what we're doing currently, because as I said, it's a work in progress, so I'll tell you what we're doing and what we intend to do or hope to do into the future. I'm curtailed slightly in what I can tell you in that it is still a discussion, not a policy. So I'm going to try to give you as much information as I can, but I will be holding slightly back. So the UCC Research Cloud is the first thing to tell you about. The Research Cloud is what is hosting this research data, and we're the ones working on the research data management policy with the various offices in UCC. So it's a private cloud providing data storage and compute services to the UCC research community. What that means is that we have a cloud in UCC. It's located in the Western Gateway building. So we have a big bunch of servers, and we have a big bunch of storage, terabytes of storage. And if you're in UCC, you can use that. You can come along and you can say, I've got a project, can I have some servers, can I have some storage? And we will say, yes, basically. And we have a number of people using it for various projects. So the projects span computer science right through to everything else. We have people from humanities, chemistry, CMRC have used it. It's basically open to anybody who needs a computer or storage. It's managed infrastructure as a service, or IaaS, if you're into the terminology that I've misspelled slightly. What that means is that we manage the system for you. So we give you the servers, but we don't expect you to know how to use them. So we'll set them up. We'll create them to your specifications. So whatever you want, we'll try to give you. And we'll look after it for you. So all you have to do is your own research or your own work. So you shouldn't spend time messing with servers and storage. You should be doing your actual research and just being very productive. We offer data management services. So we help you not just to store your data, but decide what your data is, how sensitive it is. Do you need a management plan? So while we weren't calling them data management plans, we were writing plans for people to bring to the funding bodies to explain how they would store their data. And this helped people to become more successful in their funding calls. We helped them to back it up. Do they need to back it up? What does backing it up really mean? Is it an archive or a backup? How many copies? This sort of thing. The Research Cloud is now part of information services or IT services, so it's a core part of the university. It was a research effort, but it's been elevated to the status of part of the information services now. So the history of the whole thing, and these slides are really in here to give you an idea of why research data management and data management is so crucially important. We've heard this morning about things like it'll give you better citations, it'll give you more funding opportunities. I tend to take a different approach to why your data is really important, and I'll show you in a minute what that approach is, or what the warning is. So the BCRI, the Poole Center for Research Informatics, which is a research center here in UCC, offered cluster computation services, which is basically a large computer that you could use for computation. And that was mainly for people who were into IT. It wasn't so much for the chemists. It was more for the computer people. But there was no storage with that. The machine didn't have any storage. There was a very small amount of storage available. So you basically used as little as you could, and you took your data away. So the researchers would come into us and say, can we use the machine? We go, you can, of course. They'd use it, and then they'd go away, and so would their data. So we weren't holding it, we weren't minding it, we weren't looking after it at all. And over the course of the first 4 or 5 years, we had what I politely call some data events with some of our customers. The first one of our customers here was hosted in this building. Now this is off campus, as you can probably guess from the amount of water. So this is a research group that were based in the old naval base, the naval base in Cove in Haulbowline. In that building there on the right, that lovely one, the pilot boat just going past, if you see all those lovely white windows, that's where they were. Beautiful place to be on a day like today, I'd say, absolutely fantastic. So they were working away and having a great time, and then one day this happened. That's the same building. So a short time later, I got an email from somebody saying, do you by any chance have the data belonging to these people? And I said, well, maybe. We don't keep data. It's not what we do. As it happened, we did. Now, I should stress it wasn't the only copy, and they had many copies, it was fine. It was more that we could facilitate somebody to swiftly get back into action after this fairly catastrophic event. So the data wasn't lost in the first place, but we were able to help simply because we happened to have a copy. We hadn't cleaned up yet, and the copy was still hanging around. So yeah, were they in the safe? Would it have mattered? I suspect not. That building is still an empty shell to this day. They have much nicer facilities now, by the way, with fire suppression and everything. So we moved on from there with fairly obvious incentives. And the BCRI purchased some storage equipment. So we bought some fairly high-end storage kits. So basically a big box with loads of hard drives in it, so we could offer really good storage where it was very resilient and wouldn't break or anything like that. But we switched then to offering a paid service. So now you paid for the system, but as a result, you got backups, you got data management, you got all kinds of stuff like that. So we enhanced the system quite a bit based on previous events. And we had some more data events. And this is the first one. I've borrowed this from the hockey club's Christmas cards of 2009. So that's my building. That's the lovely one there in the middle. Is there a, which one, the top one is it? That one is my building. That's the gym with the pool in the middle and outside. And that was the Great Flood of 2009, as you may have heard of, you may not. You may have been here for that. And that was right after we moved into the building to our lovely fancy data center. So the second floor, in case you're wondering, behind that lovely blue tarpaulin, miles away from the water, it was absolutely fine. The only problem we had was that the transformers for the building were in the basement. And it turns out they float. And it also turns out the manufacturer's warranty doesn't cover floating. So we had some small issues for a while. But the data was perfectly safe. The equipment worked exactly as it's supposed to. Everything was perfectly safe, and we were able to resume services 5 days later once they had tried the building out a little bit. So, we have experienced most of the natural disasters. I'm still waiting for a plague of locusts or frogs or whatever, but I'm confident we can cope with those. Well, I'm not confident at all, to be honest. I hope we can cope with those. So this is where we're coming from. This is our history. This is the evolution of our service. So basically what we discovered was that we got through both of these events. Particularly we got through the flood because we'd enhanced the system, we enhanced the capabilities, and it proved to work correctly. We had backups, we had replicated systems that all worked quite nicely. But this incentivized or spurred on a number of research groups to take quite a strong interest in data management and in management of their data, which was research. They were also spurred on by the fact that they were applying for grants in the clinical research side of things, so medical stuff, that kind of thing, which has very strong requirements from a number of institutions. So you've institution one, you've got the hospital one, you've got your GCP, and you've got your ethics committees, and you've got your pharma companies and so on. So they've really got strong requirements for it. So we expanded the services to include those as well. So while we still were moving along towards offering the services more so than the actual storage at this point. And the projects came on stream and we were storing sensitive data. So we were upgraded ourselves then to the point where we could store clinical research data without a problem. We were vetted, we would make the data management plans, and we'd send them in and they would come back okay. At the same time, as we were moving towards really secure, sensitive, not shared data, we were moving towards sharing the data for other customers who were doing collaboration. Collaboration became a very large thing with the funding bodies, and people are coming to us saying, well, we're now part of a 6-institute collaboration, can you help us to share the data? And we could. So while we had this lovely, really high secure, keep the data safe, let no one see it side of the house, we had the other side of the house, which was share with as many people as we can and bring them in and see what we can do. So the services expanded more so than the raw storage, even though the raw storage is quite important. So then we went to the next step, which is a logical progression. We moved to a services-based setup, and we established what we call a research cloud. This is the first sort of mentionings of it being an actual cloud. So this was established and created, and once we created this, we discovered that the policies that we had, which were on a case-by-case or project-by-project basis, weren't quite enough. We needed to move to the institutional level. So while the institute, UCC, has strong policies for data management and data usage and network usage, we needed to expand it to cover this sort of activity. because this didn't exist at the time the policies were drafted. And we needed to go to an institutional level, not just a research organization. So we moved on with that, and now we have our research computing strategy, which is an official one, and research data management is a very strong strand within that. So it's an official strand of the overall policy. Separate to that, and nothing to do with the Research Cloud, is Cora, which is a well-established and well-used archive for publications. And this is for publications, not data. I think it can store some data or links to data, but it is specifically designed for publications. Committees, we're now moving through the committees in UCC. So we're taking the research data management draft and discussion documents that we have, and we're moving to make these into actual policies. These are internal committees. If you're not from UCC, the acronyms don't really matter. So this is allowing us to explore the space more fully. So we're learning, or we're discovering that we need to figure out who's going to take charge of the various parts of institutional RDM, or institutional research data management. It's pretty clear straight away that it's not going to be one organization or one arm of the institute. It's going to be across multiple parts. So the research office will have a part to play, IT services have a part to play, the library will have a part to play, tech transfer may well have, we may have OCLA, which is the legal team. It spans the entire university. And then, of course, I almost forgot the researchers whose data it actually is. They will have a part to play too. I keep forgetting to mention them. So we've planned we have infrastructure in place now for data storage. What we need to do is take the next step of the evolution to go to official RDM, research data management. And we need to make that part of the workflow of the researchers and of the university, so that when any researcher creates a project, starts a project, or even applies for a project, they simply slot into a workflow, which brings them right through to creation of data management plans, through to storing data through the project and beyond. And we're drafting the policy for research data management. So the official institutional policy is being drafted as we speak, or it would be if I wasn't up here speaking. On that policy itself, it is aspirational. Research data management, and I think our colleagues who are farther down the road can agree to that, is not a quick fix. It's not an easy one. It takes a bit of time. So we're expecting this will take a number of years. We hope to be up and running with something very quickly. We'll have a pilot running very, very soon. But I would imagine it's a medium 3 to 5 year project to get this really up and running properly. It's being developed, and this is critically important, in conjunction and in collaboration with the research community in UCC. So this isn't a dictator, this isn't sort of a predefined system. We're using international best practice, we're talking to other colleges, and we're engaging with the communities here in UCC to find out what they actually need. What do they have in terms of data? And what help and support services do they need in order to have a good RDM system in place? We're working on identifying the roles and responsibilities. The responsibilities, of course, is the scary one, because nobody wants to be responsible. Someone's going to have to be, and that's one of the discussions that we're having at the moment, is where will those where will the roles and responsibilities lie? So will it be the PI? Will it be a research assistant? Will it be the head of department? We're defining the various roles and those responsibilities. It will inform where the service sits and where it will go and how far the service will go from a central point of view. So how much will IT services do? How much will the research office do? And where will the other bits do? So the researchers will still have to take on a degree of responsibility with this. One of the things we're very keen to do is to help the researchers out where we're not coming after their funding. So you can relax if you're a researcher. We're working very hard to make sure that we have a system in place that will help researchers to implement an RDM strategy and to slot into an RDM system at zero cost, ideally. So there are funding opportunities out there. We've heard about funding for open data through H2020, for example. That's a large focus this morning. That's one way to leverage funding to do your RDM as a researcher here. There are others. Wellcome Trust, for example, has a specific funding system for data management, and there are more too. So we're looking to help the community to leverage those to pay for their own RDM systems. This is one of the lines my boss put in. So it's a carrot, not a stick. The idea here is that not all data will have to go into this institutional repository. One of the things that's important to do is classify your data and decide, what is this data? How important is it? How sensitive is it? Does anybody really want to see this in 20 years' time? Is it necessary? So once you classify your data, you can decide where it should go. Should it be stored by the PI on a thumb drive in his desk? That's okay. Should it be stored in an institutional vault where it's locked away and really safe and secure? Perhaps. Or should it go into an open repository to be shared with other people? So it's not one size fit all. It's not one diktat or one order or mandate for everybody. Every system and every project is different. And then we're working to establish the principles of research data management, which is a set of principles that basically describe the system that we're building or the policies that we're putting into place. There will be probably 10 of them. I don't have them here because, as I said, they're still in discussion or still in draft. So I don't want to put them up until every actor in the system has had their input. But the community will have these principles to fall back on, so that when they are doing data management plans, when they're deciding where their data should go, and to decide if they're compliant, they'll have these to fall back on. So the activities, and I'm hurtling through my talk at a spectacular rate. So what we're actually doing in the real world, as opposed to just writing policies and talking, is we're launching a pilot system. So we're putting together a small pilot system that will offer research data management, which is kind of a nebulous term, I know, to the research community here. So one or two groups, maybe more, will have the opportunity to use this system within the Research Cloud. So building the system, it's built on Fedora Commons and Solr. That basically means it's built on the same thing everybody else uses. So Fedora Commons and Solr. Solr is a search system. Fedora Commons is a repository system. These are the two systems that are used by most institutions around the world. Some of the biggest ones would use just these two. So we're staying with the sort of the standard systems, industry systems, open source and freely available. So we're building that and offering a certain amount of research data storage for the time being for pilot users. We're talking to these pilot users to figure out what their data is. So we're going to use these as use cases for into the future and build our workflows around these. Metadata is a sort of a noun that should probably be explained a great deal more here, but won't be. So in order to use these systems, we have to talk about metadata an awful lot. And one of the things that we'll have to do is see around here who has metadata systems. What are they using? Will we use Dublin Core? Will we use something else? Do people have existing vocabularies? Can we import them? Is there a best fit for UCC, or is there a common core for UCC that we should use across the institution? That I don't know. That's going to have to emerge from the pilot system and the discussions with the research community, which is why I've left it as a single word up there. It's quite a large part of the system, and I'm not ignoring it. I'm giving it the deference it's due, shall we say. We're working on training and workshops, so we're going to build training systems for the research community. So you'll be able to come along and say, what do we do? What's all this? And we'll bring you through the training. We'll do workshops where we bring you through use cases. We'll say, this is the system. This is where we're going with it. And the policies, as I said, they're in draft, and they're moving through the various committees. I would expect we'd be at the next committee next month. After that, it'll be an official draft, and I can start to talk about it a lot more. The pilot is going ahead in conjunction with the policies being written and being drafted. So we are moving forward while we do the paperwork as well at the same time. So the big questions that we've seen so far are the ones we need to answer in the kind of the short term. And these are sort of questions, and if you want to answer them, please do. I'd be delighted. Is the metadata, and I just spoke about that a minute ago. So what will we use? Will it be Dublin Core or something else? Probably will be, unless there's an existing system that we can reuse. Will we use one or many? Is there a single one that will work? Are we forced to use more than one system? Are there existing vocabularies? Do we have to use many of them? Can we find a common core between all of them? Must we develop new ones? Another big issue then is APIs. We haven't even spoken about those. APIs are programming interfaces. And they're the things that will primarily work towards helping us share data with other people. So while I can host all the data in the research cloud, it's not much good if it's just stored there. The idea here is to make it more available to researchers to help collaboration. And I haven't even said the word open data yet, the words open data yet. APIs obviously will be a huge part of that. So while the system we're talking about, this pilot system with Fedora Commons and Solr, will have APIs and will allow us to do all kinds of sharing, most institutions seem to build their own portals or front ends, or for interaction they build systems. The APIs that we design or need to design, we probably won't do any unless we have to, will inform what we can do with these systems. So if, for example, we were to tie Cora, which is the publications, to the data archive, we'd need to do that through a programmatic interface of some sort. So you might be able to go to Cora and say, oh, there's the publication. It's really good. And then it might link you to the data which will be stored in the data archive. That would be a good thing in the future. Digitization, because not all data is digital. It's kind of hard for me to remember that as a computer scientist and an IT person, but not everything is digital. It's odd, but I suppose in a building like this, I should be able to remember that more easily. But is this a role for the RDM office or team or whatever it becomes? I don't know. This may be a service that's required. Or are we expecting everyone to come to us with lovely formatted digital data? I don't know. If they do come to us with things that are not digital, and in fact, even if they are digital, can we read them? Can we still read them? Do we have the tape player for that tape? You know, if someone brings their old cassettes, can we digitize it somehow? Or should we? I don't know. Jocularly, I suppose I will say it's the library's job or something like that. But I mightn't get out of here alive, so I certainly wouldn't say that. Is that emergency exit again? And then we're back to, yeah, that's pretty much what I just said. Who's going to carry out all these roles? So this job, or RDM, this whole system, is certainly, in my opinion, not the job of any one team or any one center in the university or the institution. It definitely spans a lot of different skill sets. The library has great skills here in archival and curation, and they're skills that we don't have in the research cloud to date. We don't have any data long enough to have curated it or archived it. So we would certainly be looking to the expertise in the library, as I think would the research community. Who would you trust more for that sort of thing than the library? Tech transfer, research office will both have large parts to play. There's pretty much no doubt about that. And then within projects, you may have data managers, you may have data responsibilities, and that's probably going to come to the PI or the head of department. And I imagine that the head of department will push it to the PI, will push it to the postdoc, will find somebody junior and push it to them. But someone in the projects in each team is going to have to take responsibility for each part of it. And one of the hardest parts is going to be allocating that. I'm certainly not intending to do the allocation of the roles. I'm just trying to point out that they're required. And the final one then would be open data, which I deliberately try to avoid speaking about at all because we're not there. We're working on putting the research data management in place first. Open data and opening it will probably come later. We will, of course, be keeping it in mind as we design the system. We do already support open data. So we have projects that are open, we have collaborations, and the library has quite a few, and IT services support a lot more. Within the research cloud, we haven't had that sort of an open system. We've had it open to a select group, but not to the world as such. So that's another new one for us as well. So that's kind of our list of as yet unanswered questions or ongoing topics. We are still in draft, but we're moving to a pilot as well. So there's an extremely swift hurtle through the current state of research data management at UCC, with the small caveat that as it's in draft, I can't show you the policies just yet. I think that pretty much, yeah, that completes it. So.
Time for a couple of questions.
We should have, I hope.
Any questions? Down the back.
Yeah, I have two questions about the reference from, like asking from this history of digital management. So, one is, if this sort of new policy was developed, can it apply retrospectively to projects that have gone on in the past and have since ended? So if someone has work sitting on a hard drive in their office, could it possibly be used in this new project? And then the second is you mentioned like applications for funding, that sort of thing, but related, would it be possible to also do this for projects that have no funding or very limited funding, especially perhaps PhD research?
So yeah, if I understand your first question, is your first question, can you use the repository for pre-existing data?
Like, so if there are projects that have been funded previously that have since ended, so
Yeah.
their data be added to the sort of institutional repository?
As long as it's UCC data or data owned by someone currently working in UCC, and yes, of course, they can use the institutional repository. This is not designed for sort of future data. This is the institutional repository for all UCC data, past, present, and future. And the second question, not all projects have funding, which is unfortunate. We would aspire to help everyone to use the system. I can't speak, or I can't promise, but certainly with having, so previously we were a paid service, you had to pay. Before that we were a free service and anybody could use it. I'm hopeful that we're in some sort of a hybrid in the future where PhD students, for example, I would hope the institution, UCC, would provide a data storage service to them. And then projects or larger projects who have budget lines could pay for a perhaps more enhanced or a larger amount of storage or a better service.
Just something about data security. You know, if you're involved in a project with a lot of sensitive data, you know, what potential for instance is being hackable, may affect, or is that an issue
It is, we have stored a large amount of sensitive data for a number of years now. So I'd say for the last 6 or 7 years, we've had clinical research data stored. We've done that as a matter of course. We've had data that falls under the Data Protection Act. We've had actual personal data stored. It's never been an issue. We take it very seriously. It's a professionally run system using enterprise class hardware, using the appropriate software with the appropriate setups. That's why we said it's a managed infrastructure as a service. So that management, we actually do all the security management and updates with you. So ahead of time, we sit down and find out how sensitive your data is. I'm speaking more from the perspective of the research cloud now than research data management, but it will apply. And we decide what your security requirements are. So we've had about 6 different clinical trials hosted in our systems, not just the data storage, but the actual portals and front ends as well. And we have never had a problem. In terms of physical security, we have all the door locks, cameras, key cards, fire suppression, leak detection, ironically, given the photograph earlier, access controls. You know, it's a very small number who can access the data center. So we do have projects that have strict security requirements.
Just a quick follow-up. Is it all an extract? This is where you have the bubbles off. You know, there's some systems and securities bubbles off, so there's a aspect of that.
Yeah, so we use partitioning and firewalls within the system where necessary. So there are places where it's not necessary, so we don't do it. But for the likes of the medical data, every single piece of that is one separate entity, firewalled off and physically cabled off from everything else. So if any one were to be breached, there's no follow-on effects. That's one of the kind of basic tenets of IT security. So yes would be the answer, I think, to the question. Sure.
Practical question. How much time roughly a researcher needs to spend per week to manage the data? Because I suppose it's not just uploading the file, it's more than that. So practically how
It depends on the data. Like if you have to apply metadata tags and if you've got to go through it and decide if the data is good or not, you're into sort of data evaluation. The uploading is the easy part. It's the deciding what's the good data, what's the data that doesn't need to be kept is what's more tricky. Applying metadata can take time. It depends on the systems that you use. So if you've got to apply tags or keywords to files, it then depends how many files you have. Is your data a small number of very big files? It becomes easier, or is it a very large number of very small files, in which case it becomes more difficult.
But because I'm trying to get an idea. Is it an hour per day or per week or per month? Because I think this is very important. If the research, I think research community, if I know I have to spend 5 hours a week, this is out of option because simply you just don't have the time. But if it's like, I don't know, 1 hour per month or 2 hours per month, maybe that's more manageable.
It's kind of a hard question to answer because without knowing what your data is and what your workflows are, it's almost impossible. It wouldn't be kind of 5 hours a day sort of thing. I would imagine, Friday morning is probably your data curation time where you do your metadata tagging and your checking and your uploads. Maybe an hour or two, but don't hold me to that. It depends on the data. I've got people who have we've got people who've got millions of small files. And I've got people with a very small number of very, very, very large files. So this complete spectrum, it completely depends on the stuff. Some people just do very simple tagging, which is a directory or a folder. Everything in there is one type of data. That took them about 2 minutes. Other people then do very in-depth tagging of all of their files. So it varies an awful lot.
There's a question here.
Yes, one question with 2 parts. First one would be, is the data itself encrypted? And the second part of the question is, once the access is granted to the data, is the access kind of encrypted, secured tunnel?
So yes and yes.
Yes.
Well, it's actually if you want it and yes. Okay. So encryption is a service we offer. If you want your data to be encrypted on the server, it can be. And then again, if you want your data transfer to be encrypted, we offer that as well. Mostly it's encrypted in transfer.
There's a question here.
Yeah. Just in terms of the time it takes in terms of research data management, I'm the clinical data manager down in the clinical research facility, and I work primarily on multi-site, multi-sector trials, and on average we would have about, it would be very big trials, we would spend about 1 or 2 days per trial, say, on data management, but we spend a lot of time at the start inputting things that are going to help the data entry process and make sure things are accurate at the entry point as well. So if we spend a bit of time at the start thinking about all these coding, dictionaries, all this, that, and the other thing, and spend the time at the start, you would definitely speed up at the end in terms of picking which data is correct and which data is incorrect, and uploading all that is very quickly. But you do have to spend the time at the start in terms of I'm thinking about doing this protocol, what exactly do I need to require? And the other thing that kind of can be a bit annoying as a data manager as well is dynamic principal investigators like to collect everything. And they may not necessarily need to collect everything. And just specifying fields that you actually require to answer the question is very important as well. All that can be done at the start, and that will speed up the data management process towards the end to make things definitely more efficient and more effective. So you do need to spend the time at the start. That could take a while, but there are mechanisms and things in place, and lots of resources available that can help that process speed up.
I was just wondering, is that going to be part of your services, helping with efficiencies and workflows? Because they have come from the large aspects and from the Irish Service Science Data Archive, which we manage in UCB, we would help research.
Yeah, so when I say data management services, that's what I mean. Right from the researcher coming to my office saying, I want storage for a project, we help them decide what their project is, help them to understand the requirements they will have, the work they'll have to do, and then we bring them towards utilities that do the system, whether it be ECRF or other systems, to actually help them to capture their data as efficiently as possible. So yeah, it's a core part of the offering.
Here and then there.
Is there a limit on the size of the files?
No. If you fill the storage, we'll just buy more. So the largest user so far is 20 terabytes. So yeah, so we're up at somewhere in the region of 80 terabytes of user data allocated. It's not fully uploaded yet. So the biggest project is 20 terabytes. Smallest is, I think, megabytes.
2 quick questions. One, could you see a point in the future where UCC will be offering access to the database to third parties for social research or even commercial. And secondly, the picture of the fire there, that's not what's meant by uploading the data to the cloud, I presume.
Maybe it may have been the sort of precursor to the term, because it does predate it somewhat. It is very ironic that they had a fire on an island. But, that's life, and you can't even. I'm going to go back to the pictures. I love it.
That wasn't
There we go. It's my favorite thing. Yes, I certainly can. While I haven't been involved in any discussions, I think it'd be a large part of the strategy would be to have the data in one single place, in a better repository, providing the mechanisms that would allow that in the future. There's a large push in the university towards tech transfer and innovation, as you know. One of the important parts of that is the research data. So we have, in the Research Cloud, we have had users come to us saying, can we change the system because their industrial partners have requested that? Or can we update the system, or can we be more compliant with standards? So I can certainly see that coming in the future. When, I'm not sure. Who would come? I know we deal with SMEs quite a bit, and we have SMEs coming into us more for the expertise, but people have started to look for what data is available, what could they do. I think we need to get that first before we can start saying this is what the data we have available, who can and would like to use it.
Okay, one more question down the back.
We talked about like big data, so the company will have a big file. Will the system allow us to interrogate that data to create maybe Hadoop jobs and get answers from that side?
Yes.
Or we should be
Yeah. So we've got a large amount of compute attached to the storage. So there's loads of servers sitting right beside the storage, so it's nice and close and you can access it quickly. And on that, we run various computation programs, Hadoop, and others. So Hadoop is one of the ones that people use there. So yes. Well, you see, that's the whole design of the system. That the computation, the Hadoop engine, is right beside the data. So you just tell it to do some work. It does it all locally, and you get the answers back. So there's no intermediate network traffic.
Yes, a question, rather curiosity question, okay? Research data, what's the proportion of structured vs unstructured data in regards to research data?
Largely unstructured.
Roughly proportion. 90 to 10, 80 to 20, roughly.
In terms of size or files?
Percentage.
I was messing with you. It's probably about 8% unstructured.
Just one more.
I was just wondering, you've done all this work, it's ongoing. Do you see yourself offering a service outside of UCC to maybe smaller bodies that do research and don't have the resources to develop in-house facilities?
Yeah, we have done it in the past, and I would hope in the future we'd be able to do that again, separate to the data management, unless it's a data management question, and come to us with a course. So we've done that in the past, and we hope to do it in the future. At the moment, it's not in the scope of this. But yeah, I would hope that would continue. It's extremely interesting, and I think valuable to the SMEs who come into us as well.
I think we need to keep going, but right, you can ask. We'll have a little bit of time maybe at the end to ask a few.
Or you can, I'm sure my email address is up there somewhere.